Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. I am Jody Grunwald. This week, my guest is Sylvia Morrison. Sylvia is an empowerment specialist and humanitarian. She is the founder and director of Links Across Borders, a registered nonprofit organization that co-creates libraries in Ghana, West Africa. Sylvia was born and raised in Jamaica, where she became a teacher. After having her children, she felt she needed to help them create a better life, so she moved to Canada. But what she found out upon her arrival there is that she did not have the right credentials to continue to teach. So she had no choice but to temp at different odd and end jobs, including working in a factory packing cups. What happened from there is just a tremendously incredible story. While there, she met a coworker that helped her along to a life-changing experience. You will have to listen in to how Sylvia not only moved forward to teach again, but was teaching at a college, and how donating to a small Christmas party in Ghana led her to move there permanently and build 8 libraries in different villages. Sylvia is a spiritual woman with a huge heart that makes a difference just by sharing her own spirit. Listen in to the part of the episode that talks about going to the tree for answers. On March 24th, Today is the Day is launching the inaugural International Changemakers Forum titled Challenge Yourself, Disrupt the Status Quo. Learn more about how you can connect with incredible everyday changemakers, CNN heroes, authors, TEDx speakers, entrepreneurs, and more. To purchase tickets and to learn more, go to todayisthedayliveit.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Today is the Day Changemakers YouTube channel, stream this podcast on all streaming sites, comment, like, and share, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Today is the Day Live It. The views expressed by all Today is the Day Changemakers podcast guests are their own. Their appearance on the Today is the Day Changemakers podcast does not imply any endorsement of them or any entity that they represent. Have a great week, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. I am Jody Grunwald, and as I say every single episode, I get to interview the most incredible people who are doing amazing things in either their corner of the world or beyond. And today I have Sylvia Morrison. Hi, Sylvia. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Jody. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm so glad that you're here. Let everybody know where you are zooming in from.
I'm zooming in from beautiful Ghana, West Africa.
Which is just, thank goodness for Zoom or these types of platforms, because this would not have happened otherwise without them. So I'm so glad that you're here with me today. And I'm going to read your bio as I do for everybody, and then we'll get into a great conversation. I can't wait to share your story. Sylvia Morrison is an empowerment specialist and humanitarian. She's the founder and director of Links Across Borders, a registered nonprofit organization that co-creates libraries in Ghana, West Africa. Links Across Borders has created 8 fully resourced libraries in Ghana since 2013. As educator and humanitarian, Ms. Morrison taught at George Brown College for many years and coordinated several international placement and volunteer abroad trips to Ghana. She's on Rogers TV and CBC Radio in Toronto, Canada, and has received numerous awards and international recognition for her transformational community development work. She's traveled and worked with individuals and communities globally. She teaches transformational principles in keynotes, workshops, and retreats internationally with a mission to assist individuals ignite their passion and stand confidently in their lights. Oh my goodness, that's such a powerful statement. That was absolutely so beautiful. Your mission is to help others live a life that is in harmony with their soul's purpose. And I know I want to get into all of that work, but before we go there, I always do this because I love learning more about the person before they became this person. We all started out not this insightful, although as a child, I feel like we have so much insight to give as well, but we're just different. So where did you grow up?
Thanks for asking that. And I love that you are interested to know where someone started, because it is true. I didn't start off this way. I grew up on the beautiful island of Jamaica. I was born and raised in Jamaica in a very small community called Samuel's Prospect. Yes, and at that time, of course, didn't imagine my life this way.
Absolutely. So how long did you live in Jamaica for?
I lived in Jamaica until I was in my 30s, in my early 30s. And yes. And then I
Wow.
moved, yes, then I moved to Canada.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now living in Jamaica, and did you have any siblings?
Yes, many, many siblings. So I'll talk about the ones, the ones that I grew up with. My mom gave birth to 10 of us. 10. Yes, I said TEN. 7 of us girls and 3 boys who are all wonderful men and women in the world today. Yes. So I had, yeah, and I had more siblings than that. I only talk about those ones right now.
My goodness, big family. Sounds super.
Yes, big family. Mhm.
That's it. So now if so now you're living in Jamaica, you have a big family. And so what child now where did you fall in the order?
That of 10, I
I'm
was
sorry.
number, in the order of 10, I was number 8.
Wow.
Yes, I was number 8. I think 8 is a great number to be at.
That is a great number to be at. I love the number 8. So what kind of child were you being in this large family? Were you outgoing? Were you more on the shy side? Because you were more the baby of the family.
Mhm. I was more outgoing, and I also, it's sometimes when I look back at my childhood, I often ask myself, because as much as I grew up in this big family, I was kind of a loner. I spent a lot of time by myself. I loved to read. I was quite outgoing, and I was always doing something that was different than what everyone else was doing. And so, because I was that different, and I can't even explain why, but I just know that's how it was, I spent a lot of time alone. I loved to play, but not in the same way that others did. I didn't enjoy playing ball, let's say, whether it was soccer or it was baseball, or because I didn't want to be hit by the ball. I didn't want people running and bumping into me. I just didn't like all that. So I would be with people in the midst of everyone, but I am by myself.
You
Yes.
know, I understand that. I didn't like to play those games either and be, yeah, I was worried about getting hit and all of the same thing. And you said that you loved reading. And I know when we spoke the very first time, you had shared something with me that I thought was so special about, taking your book with you and then walking to some neighbors to say hi. And so can you share a little bit about that as well here?
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time living in books and living, just traveling the world through books. Um, I realized, in my community, what I could see around me. Yes, it was a great place to live based on what I knew then, but I could also see a lot of sadness and hardship. And I think as a child, I wanted to learn something different, to see a different side of life. And books did that for me. So I loved reading, and I would just get into a book. And there was a little library up the street from my house. And Miss Hilda, who was the librarian, old woman, I can still remember her walking with both her, now I know it's probably osteoporosis that she had, but the way her feet were turned, and but she was every week, at least twice a week, she would be in the library, and I would follow her. And I would make sure I spend the time in the library with her reading. And then when she's ready to leave, to close the library at the end of the day, I would then take my book and I would leave until the next time we get to go back. But the other thing that I was sharing with you about me and my books visiting with folks is I'd always have a book with me. Um, and my friends were older women. And so I would show up at their houses, just call, you don't phone anybody, you just walk over to the house, knock on the gate if there is a gate, and if there is no gate, you walk into the yard. And that's what I would do. And when I show up, I would, call out their names so that they know I'm around and just be there. I have my book and they're carrying on with their lives and I listen into their conversations and just hang out, you know?
And taking it all, right? Because we're sponges at that. As a kid, I can remember I could hear everything, right? So even if I was reading, I could hear what everybody else was talking about. It's a very special gift, you know, that
Yes.
I have as a child, I believe. I mean, think I have it now too. You know, you can hear 17 things going on at the same time. But that was beyond your years. I mean, to think about, how old would you say you were around and when you were doing that?
I would say I was doing that for years. I'd say that was probably, I was like 8 years old onwards. I'd be, yeah. Yeah, and especially as a teenager, those older women were my friends. They were my friends. They knew they were my mother, but I knew they were my friends.
Right, because they're not going to treat you exactly like your mom. So it's like you get
That's
to
right.
more open conversation. And
That's right. That's right.
yeah,
Yes.
I understand. I feel like those who are old souls, you know, they have that saying of old souls. Those who are old souls, it's a thing where you relate more to those who are older than you, than kids.
That's right. Yes, yes. And I think because I hang out, you know, then with so many who were older than me, and they weren't really sharing with me, teaching me intentionally, you know, saying, okay, we want to teach you this. They were just carrying on with their conversations about their lives with each other. And I'm just hearing what they're saying. And I think that helped me to become more insightful, you know, than if someone was really trying to teach me anything. Yeah.
Yeah, you were able to take away the gems from each one of those conversations that they weren't even having with you in some cases,
That's,
right?
that's right.
Which is
That's
awesome.
right.
So what made you leave Jamaica?
What made me leave? I felt after I had my children, I have two children, two beautiful adults in the world. And I started thinking, you know, I'd like my children to have more opportunities than I had. I was happy being a teacher. I had, you know, a successful teaching career. And I love teaching and I still do. But I wondered often if I would have chosen another career if those opportunities were presented to me. I know that I loved being on stage. I loved acting and singing and the arts. And I felt like I wanted to have my children have those opportunities to just see a wider array of options for their careers and then make their own choice.
That's beautiful. And it's interesting how you became a teacher, right? Because that was all happening around you without you even realizing it at the time. So
Yes.
it was when you were younger and you were reading those books and you were growing up, did you know instantly you wanted to be a teacher? Is it something that you really?
I didn't know that. I think, you know, looking back, I had it in me to be a teacher because I used to teach trees. I know that this might sound very weird, but as a child, I used to teach trees. And I would teach the trees in my yard. And just like all the teachers in our classrooms used to have a strap back then, spanking was fine. And so they would have a strap or a switch that they could hit us with. I used to have my switch that I would hit the trees with as I was teaching them. So I wasn't conscious that I wanted to be a teacher, but I was teaching.
And you chose trees to teach. I like that.
I chose trees. I chose trees.
I like that.
And and so this is just occurring for me now as I'm speaking this. But what I can tell you is that in my life now, I learn from trees. I hadn't thought about that before.
Oh, how do you learn? This is interesting.
Pretty interesting. There are times when I will walk over to a tree and ask a question. No, the tree does, the leaves don't start talking. It's not that. The leaves don't start talking. Um, but I will walk over to a tree and ask a question. The answer will emerge
Because it's
because we're all spirit and we're all energetic beings and we're all part of the one universe. And so trees don't speak English to me or Ewe or any language that I know with my brain, but I ask the question, the answer emerges whenever.
and that so special. It's funny because growing up, I had this tree that I would walk past to go to school. And you're bringing this up for me now, and it would change colors right during the fall here, and it looked like Fruity Pebbles, which is a cereal that is here that's all different colors, right? And I would just every time I'd pass this tree, I just don't know why I felt very close to it. Like as a kid, it was we would pass it by, and my mom would always say, "Oh, there's your tree," and I do agree with you that there's a connection. Nature, it connects us. And I could totally see why going to something that's natural and just asking a question opens up the mind and provides that answer. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's so special. And
Thank you.
guarantee there are others who are doing the same thing. They, you know what I mean? They may not tell people, or people don't talk about it, but I think it's really, I go to the water and I do that. I'll go over to where we have water, and I'll think something, and I'll ask a question, and waves bring things in and out. So yeah.
On March 24th, today is the day is launching the inaugural Challenge Yourself, Disrupt the Status Quo International Virtual Changemakers Forum. This unprecedented event provides attendees with the opportunity to personally connect with fellow everyday changemakers, CNN heroes, TEDx speakers, CEOs, entrepreneurs, authors, and more. The event's keynote speaker is known as the Global Ambassador for Changemakers, Henry DeCio Jr. Your ticket purchase matters, as 20% of the proceeds will go to the Applaud Our Kids Foundation. Thank you to Investors Bank, Catalyst for Change sponsor, Create Change, Disrupt the Status Quo, Ignite Your Spark breakout session sponsor, Pam 10. Scholarship sponsor, New Jersey Business and Industry Association. Special mention to all the Inspire Change sponsors. Go to todayistheday.liveit.com.
So teaching came to you when?
Teaching came to me teaching came to me in my early 20s, because in fact, I left Teachers College at age 23. Yes, and I started my teaching career then. Teaching came to me, I think, because one, it was, back then in Jamaica, you would become a lawyer, a doctor, a teacher, a nurse, one of those careers. I didn't want any of the others.
That was it.
That was it. I wanted teaching because I knew I could teach. I loved sharing information and having someone learn it, and I also noticed that I could do it well. So it would be, easy for me.
Right.
Yeah, so I became a teacher in my early 20s.
And then you moved out of from Jamaica to Canada in your 30s, you said, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And where did life bring you then once you went into Canada?
So when I arrived in Canada as an immigrant, my life changed. My life changed, and it didn't feel like it was for the better, although I had left looking for a better life. And when I applied, and I won't go through all of the immigration hardships, but it wasn't what I expected it to be. And so I didn't get back into the classroom for many years. I think I was, kicking around, doing different jobs here and there, nothing of my career really, for about 8 years. I didn't know the path. I ended up in what I think it's not culture shock in terms of this is a different place, these are different people, different ways of life, but it was the shock of I expected that when I arrived in Canada, I could just apply for work with the Ministry of Education or the Board of Education, and with my qualifications, I would be a teacher in a school. Teachers were needed. It's not like there was, right? So that's another story. It didn't happen like that. And so for a long time, I was shocked, I was angry, I was disappointed. I was all of the, and wasn't as insightful or wise then, or, you know, I didn't have what was needed in that moment, in that time of my life to just say, okay, this is what it is. And what are you going to do about it? And just, you know, so I took jobs that I didn't really want, but needed. And they taught me a lot. So would I change that now that I know what those experiences gave me? No, I wouldn't change what I got from them. Yeah.
You said something important there, and I think, you know, and I always like to talk about this for the listeners, is that you were doing things for 8 years that you really didn't necessarily enjoy, and you had some anger around the fact that you had to go backwards in order to go forwards. It sounds
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So how do you feel you stayed on track to work towards getting back into the classroom? Because for those who feel like they're off track, how do I get back? I don't have the stamina. I don't have the energy or the insight. What advice do you have for them? And tell us, please, how you did that.
Yes. And so the thing I'll say about that is I never forgot who I really am. So there are times when I would, back then, identify myself as my father's daughter. And another time I would identify myself as my mother's daughter, right? Because I might be doing a job that makes somebody think I am this or that, which felt to me like less than, or somebody might treat me a way that was not, I'm like, if they really knew who I am and respected who I am, they wouldn't treat me that way. And so in order to hold myself up and still remain grounded, I would tell myself, remember whose daughter you are. So I would say to someone else who's listening right now, whatever it is you're going through right now, which it doesn't feel like it's in alignment with who you are and what you are about, remember who you are, even if no one else knows who you are. You know. Yes. So how did I stay focused, stay grounded? By constantly reminding myself of who I am. Staying in community with people who know me to a certain extent. They might not know what my future holds or what my dream is, but they've known me since for example, my older siblings. They know me. People who knew me when I was a child, or people who know my parents, or, you know, or my life, people who knew me from back in Jamaica. Yes, I stayed connected. So stay connected with people who know you. Yeah, know some of who you are. They help to remind you. They also know some things about you that you don't know, right? So like my older sisters knew some things about me, and my sisters that I grew up with knew some things about me so there are times when we would be having conversations and they're not reminding me of what they know for any real reason, but we're just chatting. Mm-hmm. And things come up. And that helps me, and I stick it in here to remind myself, yeah, that's me. That's who I am, right? So reminding yourself who you are. And then also remembering that Creator who brought you here, who brought me here for a purpose. Didn't create me because they had nothing else to do. It created me because there is particular work that I have to do here, and that creator wants to see happen in the world, and it can only happen through me. So I reminded myself always, as much as I might not know exactly what that work is in that moment, but I know it's something important. So I am making sure that I stay on track for it. That's what I kept reminding myself. Yeah. And encouraging myself. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That really is totally beautiful, and something that somebody else needs to hear, because sometimes just life is tough and you don't know how you're gonna get to the other side. And every day seems like a year, you know what I mean? And then there's the, like, you know, that now when you look back, you say, I learned so much from those jobs that I didn't like.
Yes. Yes. And so I'd say to folks, when you are in this position or situation that you know you don't want to be here. Like I was working in factories at a time that I know I don't want to be there. But don't walk in there being miserable. So I would go in like I'm the happiest worker in this place. Like this is a fun place to be. I make light of the various, when I was packing boxes, I would pack the boxes. I would pay attention to the details. I would make sure that I'm not making a mistake on an order. I would think of the person who is going to be buying the box of whatever that was. Yes. And I build relationships with the people I'm working with. There were times when they would, after being with me for a while, would wonder, why are you here? You know, they would think something is wrong. Why is she working here? You know, but I would build relationships and I would learn from them about, well, there were people from all over the world. So I was learning about places from all over the world. And remember, I was a girl who grew up in books, traveling the world through books. Now I had people, right? So that was interesting. And we also got to share. So I remember working at one particular place where we were packing, I was supposed to be packing cups, and the cups were coming off of a machine that was, in my mind, in my experience, they were coming so fast at me. I could not catch these cups fast enough to put them in a plastic bag and tie the bag and put them in a box and catch, and it was just too much. And this other woman who was working right beside me, much younger than I am, she's still my friend today, but I won't say her name. And what she did for me was she saw my struggle. We weren't friends yet. We became friends there. She saw my struggle and she said, just walked over to me one night and she just said, okay, you pack my boxes, move. And I just did what she said. And she started catching the cups from my machine and her machine, and she would just throw them, and I would quickly pack the box and move the box. I could do that quickly, but I couldn't catch the cups and put them in the plastic, which was called a sleeve. Yeah. What we found out later on is that she had not graduated high school. And so she was now doing upgrading, adult night school. Right. She was doing that. And we were in the cafeteria at lunch break. And she said to me, I noticed she was doing, she was writing and looked like she was in school. So I said to her, what are you studying? And she showed me she was doing her homework, and she told me her story of she's in school. But she couldn't understand something and she needed to complete this assignment. And I said to her, would you like me to help you? And she said, do you know this, Dee? And I said, yeah. She said, okay. So I started to help her. And she was surprised that I learned it so fast, she thought. I learned it so fast and could help her to get it. And she told me how she took it in and she'd got very good marks, and she wondered if I could help her ongoing. And I said, sure. I never told her that I was a teacher. No, because I didn't want her to feel like I'm a teacher teaching her, and now she's not so smart. We're both working at the same place. She's not so smart. I'm a teacher. She might not want me to know what she doesn't understand, but we are working together in the same place. She's just completing her adult education, and I've been in a successful teaching career, and now we're working in the same place. We're packing boxes of plastic cups. This is the world we're in. Yeah, that was an opportunity for me. I built a lifelong friendship with someone who is like a sister to me.
Sylvia, beautiful story. I always get teared up on this show. It's such a beautiful story. But the beauty is you didn't use your ego there. You just put your ego to the side. You didn't have to say, I'm a teacher, I can help you. It's just, I can help you.
I can help you, yeah. When she came and pushed me away from my machine, when I couldn't pack cups, she didn't say, I'm an expert at this. I've been working here for 2 years. She just said, move, let me help you. You pack my boxes. That's it. And I think if as humans, we would just allow each other to just be in each other's lives in ways where you see a gap and you can fill it. And when I have a need and you are willing to help me with that need, accept it. Just accept the help that is available. Because I often say, you know, if we didn't need each other, if Creator didn't know that we would need each other, they could have just decided to do one person at a time.
You're right.
When that person expires, they do another one, right?
That makes a lot of sense. I never thought of it that way.
We're here to serve each other. And service doesn't always mean this is the service that I give to the world and you pay me for it. It just means in this conversation right now, we're serving. You're serving me by asking me these questions. You're giving me an opportunity to even remember some things I had forgotten. And your listeners, we're serving them with the sharing in this moment. We're always serving. If we recognize that that's what we're doing, we would just do it, accept what is being offered, take from it what we need, leave the rest for someone else, and keep passing it on, because that's what we're here to do. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you said, so where does all of this incredible insightfulness come from?
Some of it come from the trees.
That's good. They're doing a good job. I need to go visit those trees.
Yeah, some of it come from the trees. Some of it come from spending time, you know, in my younger years with older women. A lot of it come from spending time with spirit. I spend a lot of time alone. I spend a lot of time journaling. I spend a lot of time praying. I spend a lot of time in meditation. I spend a lot of time in my heart. I ask a lot of questions to no one, to the big one. I just ask questions. I write them down sometimes. I say them out loud sometimes, or I just think them. And answers come. And I think my insights also, I speak them because I don't care so much as I'm a teacher. So now this might sound like contradictory, but I don't care so much about my academic knowledge. Mm-hmm. I care more about the insights that emerge in me from spirit. And so because I value insights, spiritual insights. And when I say spiritual, I mean it didn't come from a book. It didn't come from my studying. It just emerged from contemplating and asking questions to the vast knowing. Yeah. And so something emerges in me, a thought, a feeling, a sense, and I put some words to it. And my ego is such that if I say it and it doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't, I don't feel like I'm losing anything. I don't care if Jody thinks, wow, she's not so educated, because what she just said there just sounds so airy-fairy. I'm like, okay, maybe it sounds like that to you. Inside of me, it sounds profound. It feels profound, you know? And so I value that a lot.
Well, I can tell you everything you're saying is profound. There's nothing airy-fairy about anything that you're saying. I'm serious, because I'm listening to you and I know exactly what you're talking about things coming to you and you don't know where they came from. Like you don't, and you don't know where the power of the action that you're doing is even coming from, because it's outside of your own comfort zone, yet you're doing it and you don't even know how it's happening and coming to fruition. So I totally understand those, and what I call them are energetic hits, right? You don't know where they're coming from, but somehow they're coming through you, and you just know you have to be on this ride. And honestly, the podcast was exactly that. I had no idea what I was doing and why I was doing it, how to even do it. It just happened. But I understand what you're saying. And that's why those who are listening, when you're feeling those things, when you're being pushed somewhere, there's a reason for it.
There's a
And
reason.
fight it, right? Wouldn't you agree? The more it's going to keep coming back.
Yes. So don't fight it. Don't fight it. I know that, you know, in our society, we are expected, for the most part, to be able to defend what it is that I have to say, or what you have to say, to be able to back it up with science, or back it up with some research, back it up. And me, I am not interested to back it up. No. I won't try to back it up. If this thing arises in me, yes, I read a lot. And if this insight arises, emerges for me, and I meditate and I reflect on it, and it means something for me, I am speaking about my knowing, not yours. I don't have to back it up. If it doesn't make sense for you, it is not for you. And something that I also know is that something that might not make sense for you in this moment, probably 2 weeks from now, will make sense. Because that has happened to me too, where I've heard something, someone said something, someone was even trying to teach me something that didn't seem to me at the time made any sense, right? Or was valuable. But later on my journey, that's what they were talking about. And now all of it will come back because I had heard it already, right? So I do not dismiss quickly something that I probably don't understand, or it is not within my frame of reference. I don't discount or dismiss it. I hear it, I let it wash over me. If it doesn't sink in, I know it's somewhere. It's somewhere there. It will return when the time comes.
Those to me are the seeds planted, right? Those are the seeds that get planted, and somehow they get watered over time, and all of a sudden something beautiful appears. And so I totally know what you're saying.
Eli Manning, former New York Giants quarterback.
Leading a team, you learn pretty fast. You're only as good as the people who have your back. Lately, my goals are more focused on business, and having Investors Bank as my banking partner feels the same way. They have my back too. They're there for me with the resources and online tools I need for whatever success lies ahead. For what I do now and what I'll do next, I count on Investors Bank.
Visit investorsbank.com or stop by a branch. Member FDIC.
You go to Canada, you work for 8 years doing things that you don't love, but you're learning incredible lessons. I mean, you shared with us an incredible lesson right there. I'm sure there's so many. But then you start teaching at the college, right? And tell us a little bit about how you wound up at the college. But I also want to get to talking about how you wound up in Ghana. So I could talk to you for hours. So I want to, but first tell us about how you wound up then going 8 years that, and then finally getting to the classroom.
Okay, so yes, so the story to the classroom, I became a student before I became the teacher. Yes, so while I was doing these various jobs here, there, and everywhere, and then I entered into banking and was doing really well there, and then felt like, no, this is not where I want to be. I'm getting paid decent, and I get to dress nicely, but this is not where I want to be. There was an opportunity to volunteer, and I thought, yes, I want to volunteer. And it was at the Rape Crisis Center. And so I started volunteering at the Rape Crisis Center, and that opened up a world for me that I did not know existed, although it took me back to a world that I knew I had forgotten. And so folks there who were, the staff there and who were training me as a volunteer noticed that I was good at it. I was good at the work. Yes, it was easy for me. It was hard work, but I was not easy. It was natural for me. And I started asking, how could I said, I would like to learn how to do this and have certification to do this kind of work. Is there a school that I can go to learn this? And they said, there's a program here, there's a program here, and that you could become a social worker or this or that. And somebody mentioned George Brown. And I thought, let me look at George Brown. And so I looked at George Brown and I saw this program, the Assaulted Women and Children's Counselor Advocate Program. And that program dealt specifically with preparing students to be a counselor advocate for women survivors of sexual assault, sexual violence. And it resonated with me like, this is the thing. And so I registered for it. I got accepted and I started the program, and I did the program, graduated, of course, with flying colors. I loved it. And so when I was at my graduation, I remember as I was, you're crossing the stage and getting your diploma and woohoo, and I had won the Dean's Medal. And I remember that when the Dean was putting the medal on my neck, she said in my ear, there's a seat on this platform for you. Yes.
Give me chills.
Yes, I got chills that time too. I'm like, yes, Mr. Walker's daughter, Janet's daughter is here. And she said that not only because I won the Dean's Medal, but because of several things I had done in the college as a student. And so they had heard my name, they had seen me around, I had made a name. So fast forward now, a couple of years later, I was working at the same Rape Crisis Center that I had volunteered. I was now working there, paid staff, and I got an invitation to the college, and I accepted it. And so I taught there for many years, and I proudly taught there in the same program and in another program. And I loved it because I got to mentor other students. I would say to other students, when they would see me as professor, I would say, I did this program as a student. That's why I'm teaching it. I wanted them to know that there is this forward step. This could be where you're headed. This is possible for you too, and even more than this. Yeah.
So setting the example, showing the
Yes.
example.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
incredible. That's incredible. So, you know, I just listening to that, it totally gives me chills, and it's a great way for people to understand that growth happens every day. Every day
Yes.
we grow every single day, and if we pay attention and we're present, we hear these messages and these intuitive hits, but you have to be present for them.
Yes. I want to repeat what you just said. Pay attention and be present. Being present means, for me, not thinking about all of what the various circumstances are of my past and what I am afraid of in the future, but really being present now, listening to what's being said now, not what was said some weeks ago. What is being said now? What am I feeling now? What am I doing now? What is happening to me now? That's being present.
True. So then you're teaching, and I know, you know, luxury of you and I talking prior to this, but
Yes.
you know, being able to hear your story about waking up and deciding not to have Christmas, is that right? Like there was just something. So I mean, I don't want to give it away. I want you to share the story, but you were
Yeah.
teaching at the
So
time, right? You were teaching at the time when this happened.
yes. So here I am. No, in fact, I wasn't teaching at that time.
Oh, you weren't? Okay.
No, I was still doing the
Oh my
jobs
goodness.
here and there. Yes. Yes.
That's even better
And
story.
life wasn't that good at the time. Life wasn't that good. And I was visiting with a friend of mine, and she asked me, are you shopping? Are you finished your Christmas shopping? And I said, no, I'm not shopping for Christmas. And she said to me, how come? And I told her why. I don't really like shopping. I don't like the hustle and bustle of Christmas shopping. And my kids at the time were teenagers. And I said, I just give them money to go buy themselves what they want. And I spend Christmas in a different way with, you know, family and friends and so on. And I said to her, what are you doing for Christmas? And she told me that she was sending money home to her mother to create a Christmas party for children in her village. And I said to her, I could do that. Could I give you some money to add to yours and make a bigger party? And she said, you trust my mother with your money? And I said, no, I don't trust your mother. I don't know her. I trust you. So I'll give it to you and you can give it to your mother. And that's what happened. And February the following year, I saw pictures of the Christmas party that we had supported. And that warmed my heart, you know. So here I am living, you know, in a situation which my life was difficult at the time. It was really difficult. Remember, I'm going through working in spaces that I know I could be working somewhere else that feels more in alignment, but I'm not. So this was something that I could do, and it made me, I felt good about it, you know? Yes, and so I got those pictures in February, and we are talking now about the children in the pictures. And then my friend says to me, some of these children are not going to school. And I thought, what? She said, no, so they can't afford to go to school. And that hit me. That popped my balloon. He did. And so I heard in my heart, you could do something about that. Yeah, I heard in my heart. Now my head, because my head knew I couldn't do anything about that. My head knew I had very little money. My head knew that, but my heart doesn't know that, you see. And I said to her, tell your mother to send us a list of the names of the children. we should help them to go to school. And so she did. And a few weeks later, we saw the names of the children, and I picked 6 names. I picked 6 names. I'm a single mom of 2, and I'm feeling like life is hard. I can hardly take care of them well enough, but I picked 6 names off the list.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I started to pay their school fees for school. And I did that for 3 years before I arrived in Ghana. It was 3 years after I had been sending these kids to school that I woke up one morning in 2006. My life was even harder. And Spirit said, go to Africa this year. You've always wanted to go to Africa, you know, the whole continent. And it just felt like, wow, yeah, that's something I'd like to do. Yeah, and so I did.
So I just want to go back for a minute because
Yes.
because it's incredible. You didn't really have the money,
No, I didn't.
but yet you found the money.
Yes, there is no shortage of money in the world. I said that intentionally. I say that also at various times to remind myself when I feel, when there's a feeling of scarcity coming up for me, when I am going to launch another program, another project through my organization, and I'm like, oh my God, where am I going to get the money to do that? There's no shortage of money in the world. Yeah. So I said, yes, I'm gonna do it. And I didn't think about it. The feeling came up in my heart. I said, yes, that, you know, you can tell when you really want to do something. It just, there's a lightness about it. I started feeling like I was dancing, walking, everything tasted better, looked better. Yeah. And so I decided, yes, I'm going. And this is what folks should do. The next thing that happened, a phone call came in, and it was my niece, who was also a good friend of mine, and we're chatting. And as soon as she said, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing well. It's a great morning. Guess what? I'm going to Africa this year. She said, what? I said, yeah, I'm going to Africa. And she said, really? I said, yeah. She said, when? I said, I didn't book my flight yet. She said, where are you going? And I picked a place, Ghana. She said, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Now, that wasn't a plan. It just happened. I didn't allow my brain to get engaged with what my heart had said. So my heart was still speaking. It was only heart that was speaking. If I was speaking from what I knew in my real circumstances, I would not have opened my mouth and said that. I didn't have money. I wouldn't know. I know I couldn't afford it. But anyway, so now I had said it. And the energy around that had become bigger. So of course, I'm thinking about the next step. And so the next step is check and find out how you get a ticket to Ghana. That's it. You're not going to get there if you don't check on a ticket. What's the price? How do you make the arrangements? What's required? So I started asking those questions. And of course, when I was doing that, I didn't have these insights, but I realized that as I was asking those questions, getting the information I need, taking the next step in the process, what I was doing was opening the pathway one step at a time. That's it. I told her the energy around it grew bigger. My excitement for it got bigger. She started to become excited about it, right? She's probably so excited because she knew that I didn't have money. So she's probably surprised and excited at the same time. That's a bigger energy.
Right.
And then I'm asking questions about ticket, about this, about visa, about all of these things. I am creating a bigger ripple for it to happen in the world. Yeah, that's how it happened, honestly. I bought my ticket with my credit card. Yeah, I bought my ticket with my credit card. And then I started telling my friends that I was going to Ghana. And some of them knew already that I had been supporting children in Ghana. Yeah. And so because they knew that, because they knew I had been sending kids to school, they would ask, they asked, so are you going to see the children? And I said, yes, I will. I'm going to see the children. And so folks started offering, what do you want to take? What are you going to take for them? Many of them didn't know my financial situation. So when they asked me, what are you taking? They really meant, what are you taking? And I told them what I was taking. But did I buy anything yet? No. I was telling them what I wanted to take. But as I was telling them what I wanted to take, they were thinking then of what they could give. Yeah, that's how it happened. So folks started to, some would say, oh, you know, my daughter grew out of her summer clothes from last summer and they're packed away, and you know, for 2 summers now I've been packing. They're in this, would you take, would you? And I say, yes, let me see them. If they're in good condition, I'll take them. Somebody else might say, my sons, my children have grown out of these sneakers, would you be interested? And I say, yes, if they're in good condition, I'll take them. And somebody else will say, do you want to take? And I want to take some crayons and some coloring books and some exercise books and some backpacks. And so I already knew in my mind what I wanted to take. And so as I would share that, folks would say, I want to, and people would buy things and bring it to me. And they would ask me, are you going to pack a barrel or are you taking suitcases?
It sounds like a barrel to me, like a whole container. She was taking a container to Africa.
You know, but that's how it happened. Yeah. And then I remember that the week before I left, in fact, few days before I left, that I went to church the Sunday before, so a week before. And I had shared with the pastor at the church that I was going to be away. I'd be gone for a month, because of course I'm going for a month. You don't go to Ghana for the first time and stay any less than a month if you're Sylvia Morrison.
That's right.
If you're Sylvia Morrison, who wanted to be here since she was a child. And so I told him I'd be gone for a month, and would they keep me in their prayers and so on. And he announced at church that Sylvia would be going, and she says she's going to visit her children and so on, and she's asking for our prayers. And then he said, and if you would like to help with her trip to go, feel free to give her what you can. Yes. And what they did that day was they each walked up to the front of the congregation and they gave whatever they gave each person. I don't know, but I still remember the amount that I was given. I was given $800. In 2006, that was a lot of money. And I was glad that it came just before I left, because I wanted to be able to take money with me. And I only had $200 that I was taking with me. And I had a feeling it wouldn't do much on the ground, but that's what I had. And I tell you, when I arrived here and I could go into the bank and change this money and be able to fund things here and there, I bought a full set of tools for a young man who wanted to be a motor vehicle mechanic, paid for his tuition to do that, paid for a young woman to learn to be a seamstress, buy her a brand new machine, and all of the other things that she would need to do that. Like, I paid for 21, I remember the number, 21 children, a list of children's names that the administrator for a school that my 6 children were going to, and they were going to that morning. I was meeting with the administrator, and they were going to send home from the school that day these 21 children. Well, they were sending home more than 21, but I took a list of 21 names. They were sending them home because they hadn't paid their school fees for the first semester or the second semester. And they said, this is how we get parents' attention when kids don't pay. We send them home, and then their parents will do whatever they have to do to find the money to send. And I took one of the sheets of paper from him, and I said, how many are on this list? And he said, 21. I said, would you add up how much it is that these 21 are owing? And when he added it up, I said to him, I'll pay their school fees. Yes. You don't know what that felt like for me. It wasn't, yes, it may have done something for my ego, but I tell you what it did for me also. It healed for me the brokenness and the poverty that I grew up in. Because I grew up in a time when there were days, weeks of my year when it would be Wednesday, and my mother would say to me, I won't be able to send you to school tomorrow because there isn't money for your lunch to go to school. And that's Thursday and Friday. So what I used to do as a kid was, when I would get my lunch money on Monday and my lunch money on Tuesday and probably my lunch money on Wednesday, I would make sure on those 3 days never to finish my lunch money. I would always save some of it. Even if it's only 10 cents of it, I would save it, because I knew that before the week ended, Mama would tell me she didn't have money either for Thursday and Friday or for Friday only. And I wanted to make sure I wouldn't miss school. So the day she would say, you can't go tomorrow, I would have some money that I had saved from the previous days. So I was giving to children something that I knew what it felt like to not be able to go to school because money is not available. I wanted to give that to children. Yeah.
You did. Gosh, that's just totally incredible.
Pam 10 is a leader in IT enterprise solutions and staffing. They are driven to transform their clients' business performances. They do this every day by providing their clients with the best services and products. Products like BizLego, an online community platform, and Colear, a unique learning management system. They also transform the lives of women and children through their associated nonprofits, SheTech, which supports women in and joining the technology field, and Softkin, support organization for kids in need. Pam 10, technology for social good. Go to pam10.com for more information.
You went to Ghana for a month. Now, work-wise, what happened with your work back in Canada?
Because, so remember, I told you I was doing these odd jobs. So
You had a break in between?
That's right. Because at the time, honestly, at the time, I was working with agencies who would place me here or there, and you have, so you're either available or you're not. And they would give you work if work was available or work wasn't.
Temp agencies. Yeah, temp agencies were very big, and absolutely.
That's
that makes
right.
Perfect sense.
Yeah, so I didn't have to apply for leave, and I wasn't on vacation or something. I was free.
Yeah.
I was freely unemployed for a month, with
Wow.
the hope that when I returned, they would have work available, because now I'm really poor. You know, and that, you know, so here I am. So if we look at that situation, I was doing all this that folks would think she must be rich if she's able to do that. I was being a channel. The money I was spending didn't really come from my bank account, but I was using it for the purpose it was given. And it was being channeled through me because I had already said, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I said I was doing it. I didn't know where the money would come from.
Yeah.
And I did it. And I have continued over the years, and I continue to make the work bigger and bigger and bigger. As Spirit tells me what to do, I announce I'm doing it. Yes.
So you went to Ghana, you came back, you wound up getting those odd jobs, wound up going to school, becoming a teacher, and living in Canada, but now you're living in Ghana, and you've now built libraries, which is like just incredible. So I please just share with us how that came about.
So I started, and I know now I better make the story shorter.
But that's why I said I could talk to you for hours. I could talk to you for hours.
Okay. So that was 2006 when I came for the first time. And as I was returning on my flight at the end of that month, on my way back, I found myself in my seat on the flight crying, you know, crying as I'm leaving. And I'm happy, but I'm crying. I'm happy and I'm sad at the same time. And I arrived back and I shared with folks, and I had taken lots of pictures and shared, you know, and told stories about, and I knew I was returning. So I was planning my next trip already as soon as I arrived. And the short of that is I returned to Ghana every year after that. Because, and I must say, because folks are going to wonder, how could that have happened? When I returned to Canada after that trip, the following, so that was in May that I came to Ghana and spent a month. And it was in July that I applied for George Brown College as a student.
More chills. Oh my gosh, more chills. Like I have. Wow.
So here I am. I am so life changed for me. Life changed because now I'm working at the Rape Crisis Center, and I am now also teaching, and life has taken off. I'm not doing the odd jobs anymore. Yeah. And so I'm planning now my next trip. And I came to Ghana every year from 2006 until 2012. Every year volunteering in a different village, hanging out with more older women than and I don't know what they're saying, because in fact, older women, you know, those older women, they weren't trying to even have a conversation with me. They were just having conversation, kind of like what was happening when I was a child. Whatever I could catch, I catch. And I could just be there and be nobody. And I enjoyed being nobody. I'm just hanging out. I'm hearing, I'm sensing, I am kind of just allowing it all to wash over me and in me and through me. And so I did that from 2006 until 2012. And yes, every year I would bring more supplies, school supplies, and I would help out in some schools, and I would hang out in different villages. And then in 2012, something happened. Spirit said to me, it's time to do something more, you know, that would impact more children's lives because although I was supporting children for school, I noticed that even the children whose school fees I was paying, they didn't have books. They might have exercise books and pencils and pens, but many of them didn't have textbooks. I didn't see, when I went to bookstores, even I saw lots of empty shelves in bookstores back then. And I never saw a library in any of the communities that I was in. I'm not saying there wasn't any library in all of Ghana, but I had not seen one. And so I thought, okay, what can I do that was different? And in conversation with some friends of mine here on the ground, I decided that a library was the next logical thing to do. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to build a library. And so I announced it. I am going to build a library in Ghana next year. Yes. And we did it. We did it. We collaborated with a community who was interested to have a library. And over the period of a year, I built the library in the community, of course, with community cooperation in a school that was already an existing school. We renovated one of the rooms, turned it into a library, got new furniture, lights, ceiling, walls, all of what is required to make a library. And I still remember that the number of books that year was 500 books. I collected books, donations of books in Toronto, in Mississauga, where I lived at the time. And 500 seemed like a lot of books. I mean, the years later, 500 books seem like a box of books. Because over the years, I've shipped upwards to 5,000 at a time, 6,000 at a time, like thousands of half a container, a 20-foot container of books at a time. So to this point, to date, we've built 8 libraries in Ghana, fully resourced, with great books, children's books, adult books, reference books, computers. We've created computer labs. Each library would have computers in them. I've taken volunteers from Canada and the US to Ghana. I've offered international placement to students from George Brown, from Humber, from Ryerson, and other post-secondary in Ontario. Yes, all of that so the first library was in 2012, our most recent was in 2018, 2019 was the last time that I brought volunteers, and we know what happened in the world right after 2019. We're coming out of that now. We're getting used to it. Yes, but in the span of, those years, we've done a lot.
Did you move to Ghana in 2016? Is that when you moved to Ghana, or?
No. So I kept coming each year. I would come with a new team of volunteers, and we'd complete a new library. Of course, the library is being built in the community by the community. Yes, Links Across Borders, I'm funding. I came in 2019 when I arrived on the ground in 2019, and the world locked down in 2020. Just before I was supposed to return in April, and the lockdown happened in March, and I said, woohoo! I get to be here. I get to be locked down in Ghana. Yeah, so during that time, I built my house here in Ghana. I'm sitting in it right now.
It's beautiful. And oh my goodness. So Links Across Borders is a 501c3 organization, right? You started it in Canada though, right?
In Canada, yes, it's a nonprofit organization. It's registered in Canada, it's registered here in Ghana as well. Mm-hmm.
Which is absolutely incredible. So when you talk about libraries, because I think this is important for people to have a visual, some of them Some of them in schools and some of them brick and mortar on their own, or are they
That's right.
mixed?
That's right. Some of them are built in school, exactly what you said. Some of them are in schools and some of them are standalone buildings in community. And in those libraries, it's in an area where there are several feeder schools to it, so that schools get to come to the library. They might not have a library in their school, but they get to come to the library. And so one of the activities that we do at the end of creating a library such as that, which is a community library, we would then have a few days of orientation so that we bring in the schools that we will call feeder schools, bring them into the library, arrange with the school to come to us at the library, and we do orientation so that the teachers and students get a feel of the library, see the categories that are there, think together about how they will use it, how they get there, and those sorts of things. Yeah. And it works.
I'm sorry. And then I think you mentioned that, you want the books back so that the kids are switching, but if the book doesn't come back.
Oh, yeah. For me, I think I want kids to have books. I want them to build relationships with books. I want books to become their friends, like books were my friends. And so, yes, we would like the books to remain in the library. But more importantly, I want the books to be with the children. I want children and books to be together. So if they borrow books from the library and the books somehow don't return when the children come back, I have no problem with that. They're reading the book, okay. I'm happy with that, yes. So we encourage them to bring the books back.
Yeah, of course.
But I am not going to shame a child because they didn't bring the book back. I just ask them about their story and are they enjoying it? And which book did you take last time and how was that? What did you like and who was your favorite character? Where did you go?
That's amazing. So now funding wise, where do you get most of your funds from?
Funding wise, remember my situation changed. And sometimes I think those of us who have been poor for a long time are so good at being poor that when let me talk about me. I was so good at being poor that when I have money, I just figure, you just share that, girl. So I've been funding this work myself for years. And I do fundraising events that sometimes bring in funding. And I have friends who sometimes generously give me money because they know that what I'm doing, I share it all the time. So they know what I'm doing and they will support. And there are some generous people in the world who from time to time, for example, 2 weeks ago, I just reached out and said, hello, someone need, and they wrote back and said, you probably need a little extra money by now to help with something you are doing. And I wrote back and I said, thank you for asking. Yes, I would really appreciate some extra money. And they sent me $500. Yes, they did. And so, I have friends who will do things like those, but I don't have folks who are my funders. And there is one organization that I don't know if it's okay to name organizations, but there's one. Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in Toronto, the Basilian Fathers in Toronto, yes, 2 years in a row have funded one of my programs. Yes, I've received a grant from them. And that has, especially these 2 years, in fact, these 2 years when I was in lockdown here. And I was thinking, I don't know, how is this gonna work? Yes, so I have to shout out to them.
Oh, that's awesome. So how can people help? Where can people find information and how can they help?
Yeah, so the website, linksacrossborders.org. They can also find me on Facebook. I'm all over it. the Links Across Borders Facebook page as well, and just reach out to me. Yeah. We're at this year, we're looking to write our children's book. I'm launching a new initiative that is exciting, that is really built on my own childhood and what I've seen, how parts of my own childhood is what I've been, I think, taking through this journey that I am serving other children, and hadn't really been noticing that before. And so I'm going to have children writing their own books this year. They've started writing. So they're going to be writing their own books, and we are publishing this year. The how, I don't know the how yet, but we're doing it, right? So if you're listening, if somebody is listening and they know about publishing and writing children's books and illustrating children's books and all those things, if they know how and they're willing to participate, please, please, please hit me up. I would love to talk with you, because we're doing it, but I don't know how, and you know how. And if there's an organization who would be able to fund us and would love to do that, we would love to speak with them. And if there are individuals who would love to participate, volunteer with us, come to see us in Ghana, send us money, I'd love to hear from you. No shame to this game.
No, absolutely not. And you know what's so awesome is that I've been connecting change makers. So there's 2 change makers who are authors, children's books authors, that I'm definitely going to connect you with. I think I did with one, and I'm going to connect you with someone else as well. And one's in Sweden, and one's in the United States. So I will definitely make that connection for you. But yes, help and continue to showcase how when Sylvia puts her heart out, everything comes back, which is really what happens, it sounds like to me.
Yes.
Sylvia, before two last questions. One is, what's your favorite book?
Oh my gosh, my favorite book. I won't say it is my favorite, because it changes from time to time. But I'll say one of the books that really got me started was Robin Sharma's The Monk That Sold His Ferrari. That book got me started in a way that I hadn't thought before. And then another book that I really liked, that, yes, The Four Agreements. The Four Agreements, yeah. It's another. And those are books, they're still on my shelf. Even when I put some books away, those ones, and I might not pick them up and read them, I look at them and they remind me. Yes.
Reminders of, right? What's inside those books? It's just a little bit of a message.
Yes,
So,
yes.
Sylvia, what is the footprint that you're creating right now that you want to leave behind?
Thank you. The footprint, I want, when I leave this world, that there will be thousands, if not millions, of lives, that even if they don't know me personally, they would have benefited from my work. Children who grew up in places that looked like their world was very tiny and nothing was really going to happen for them, that their lives have changed because of my work. I also want to leave the legacy of sharing with folks, opening up folks' minds to the possibility that if you really want to make a difference, if you really want to create change, don't try to fix the whole big problem. It's overwhelming and it will stop you from starting. So I want to leave folks with a light of hope that you can do just one small thing. Do one small thing. The problem might be big, but you can do one small thing to touch and make a difference.
Absolutely. You are such a light, Sylvia, and I'm so honored to know you.
Thank you so much, Jody. I really appreciate this conversation. You know, yeah, I really appreciate this. I like sharing.
No, I love hearing. I love sharing your story with the listeners, and I want to have you back on. I feel like there were so many more questions to ask, and I want to have you back on to continue to share your wonderful stories and your light.
I would be happy to do that. We'll book a time for it to happen. Yes. Thank you
Great.
so much.
Thank you, and I hope that you'll be part of our summit next year. Next year, when we have this year's guests on next year, hopefully you'll be one of our speakers, because you'll really make a difference. So thank you so
I
much.
would love that. I would love that. Yes. Thank you.
Well, hopefully we'll see you too on March 24th, because I know that you have a ticket to the event for our
Yes.
summit. So I'm excited about that as well. Sylvia,
Thank you.
thank you for everything.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jody.
linksacrossborders.org, right?
Yes. Yes. Thank
All
you.
right, everybody, I'm going to say what I say at the end of every episode. Today is the day. You cannot go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. So what steps, small or large, are you taking today to get yourself closer to your goal? Thank you again to Sylvia Morrison and all of her light, and have a great week, everyone.
Thank you.